Liam Lawson did everything right last season. He had one shot, one opportunity to seize everything he's ever wanted. One moment, he captured it, didn't let it slip away. Wait. We're not doing an Eminem song here. We're talking about Liam Lawson, who performed extremely well under pressure when he was called up to drive for Alpha Tauri. The only problem is, Liam Lawson performed too well. Imagine doing everything right, beating your direct competition, and still losing out your seat to that competition. Well, that's exactly what happened to Liam Lawson last season. Was this his opportunity to finally get a seat in F1? Or did Alpha Tauri do the right thing in keeping him on the sidelines for a little bit longer? Well, that's what we're going to talk about right now, but before we do, take 1 second to like and subscribe. Done? Let's go. Liam Lawson got the opportunity many other reserve drivers can only dream of receiving, albeit not necessarily in the way we would have liked to see, with Daniel Ricciardo having to sit out on the sidelines for 5 races, but that's a story for another time. At the time, Alpha Tauri were desperate. They had just made the decision to sack Nick DeVries and had given Daniel Ricciardo the seat. But before Daniel even managed to have one race weekend, Alpha Tauri were again looking at an empty seat. They decided to call in their reserve driver, who they share with Red Bull, Liam Lawson. Liam Lawson has been in the Red Bull Alpha Tauri reserve driver role since 22, having replaced Yuri Vips. Since then, he has done various duties as a reserve driver, participated in multiple practice sessions, and even driven the RB7 for a demonstration run. However, he'd never done anything like this before. During the 2023 Dutch Grand Prix, Lawson was called up just before the third free practice session. He had little practice time and understandably ended up qualifying in 20th. He had a 10-second penalty during the race, but still somehow ended up finishing 13th overall, an extremely difficult race with lots of pit stops and extremely unpredictable weather. This 13th place finish was higher than his teammate Yuki Tsunoda. At Monza, Lawson qualified 12th and finished 11th, beating Tsunoda yet again, who failed to reach the starting grid due to a failure. In Singapore, Lawson qualified 10th, knocking out Max Verstappen in Q2. He finished the race in 9th, scoring his first F1 points and once again outperforming his teammate Yuki Tsunoda. In Japan, Lawson finished 11th, while Tsunoda finished 12th. In Qatar, Lawson had a much weaker showing, finishing last of the runners. All in all, Lawson beat his teammate 4 out of the 5 races. Sure, Monza wasn't Yuki's fault, but the others were direct battles. Despite all of this, Alpha Tauri decided to continue the season with Yuki Tsunoda and Daniel Ricciardo as their drivers. This could understandably be enraging for Lawson, who probably believes he performed just as well as he could have in the car he was driving. But the bigger question I've been asking myself is, why did Red Bull and Alpha Tauri make this decision? First, I think Red Bull are almost forced to keep Yuki Tsunoda on as a driver for Alpha Tauri, given his Japanese nationality and Red Bull's partnership with Honda. On top of that, Red Bull have spent 3 years developing Yuki at Alpha Tauri, with the hopes of maybe promoting him to the main Red Bull seat if he does perform well. They have seen Yuki consistently improve, and this year, he has also taken on the role of team leader after Pierre Gasly moved over to Alpine. There would be no reason for Red Bull to throw away their investment so quickly after only a couple races. On the other hand, they could have considered giving Lawson Daniel Ricciardo's seat, but this would have been another tough decision for Red Bull. Daniel Ricciardo is a marketing dream, and Red Bull know this. Red Bull had the deal of a lifetime, paying Ricciardo much less than he would have been making as a full-time driver to have him as a third driver and a media headline. But when they put Daniel in a test session and saw that its times were comparative to Max Verstappen's, it was a no-brainer that he would be a perfect fit to replace Nick DeVries, hopefully with a chance at that main Red Bull seat. If Lawson did replace Ricciardo after his 5 races, Red Bull would have been giving up on an extremely motivated Ricciardo with a load of experience. Daniel would have most likely not have accepted being dropped back down to the role of reserve driver, and this potentially would have meant the end of his F1 career. Add to this the fact that Christian Horner absolutely adores Daniel, it would have been difficult to not let Daniel at least prove himself for the rest of the season. Unfortunately for Liam, Daniel also took his opportunities and performed very well for Alpha Tauri in the remaining races. He secured crucial points for them, which ended up helping them finish in 8th position in the Constructors' Championship. Although both seats were now filled, there were other rumors circulating that said that maybe Red Bull had secretly offered Liam Lawson a spot for the 2025 season, which meant that he could stay on as their reserve driver until then. After his last race with Alpha Tauri, there were reports that Red Bull had actually offered Lawson a seat come 2025. There were reports of it being a direct Red Bull seat, other reports of it being an Alpha Tauri seat, leading to even more speculation that this would imply that one of the current Alpha Tauri drivers would make the jump to Red Bull, essentially seeing Perez out of a seat. Of course, no one actually made an official statement or confirmed these rumors, but they are still very valid. If there was no promise of a future seat, I'm sure Lawson would have used his run of success to field different offers from different teams. I also believe other teams would have looked at the prospect of taking on Liam Lawson to fill out one of their spots. Maybe Williams would have considered swapping out Logan Sargent for Lawson, or other teams probably would have shown some interest in him as well given the run he had. Knowing he had already secured a spot for a future Red Bull team could have been one of the reasons he wasn't fielding other offers, which also made it easier to re-accept that role of reserve driver. Another reason I think Red Bull might have decided not to let Lawson have a full-time seat is because they think they have a stronger lineup with Lawson as a reserve driver. Red Bull always want to have the strongest drivers from top to bottom. They may have felt that by promoting Lawson and probably losing Ricciardo in the process, they would have been extremely exposed without a reserve driver. This was probably even a greater factor when they saw how important it truly is to have a reserve driver. Again, I don't see how Lawson would have accepted remaining simply as a reserve driver with no future guarantee of a spot, but we really don't know what happened behind the scenes. Maybe he did reach out to different teams and nobody was interested. From a Red Bull perspective, having Lawson as a third driver is a very solid driver lineup, and I understand why they would be more than happy with this situation. It's hard to see Liam Lawson's seat was stolen when it wasn't really his to begin with. However, I don't think he could have performed any better than he did throughout those 5 races in that Alpha Tauri. He stepped up and helped the team towards achieving their goals. He truly does deserve a chance at a full-time seat, and I do hope the rumors are true and that come 2025, we'll be seeing Liam Lawson in either a Red Bull seat or an Alpha Tauri seat. Thank you guys for watching this video. As always, I do hope you enjoyed it. If you do want to see more content like this, make sure to subscribe and like, because it really does help out the channel. As always, thank you guys again, and see you next time. Bye.